we have a lot of signups, and I'm sure a lot of people are coming who are also excited to learn. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is gonna be a fun one. Also GM Curiel. Anyone else who's joining into, if you do reply, we are reading your replies. And if there's any question, I mean, we'll go into like, the flow of things, but sweet. What's speaking
We should
of
be live on YouTube. Are we seeing that we're live on YouTube with the EthStaker stream?
let's check.
I got my echo, so it actually is working from what I can
nice.
tell. And I can send that link around.
Perfect.
All right.
Yep.
Perfect.
Please send it in the chat as well.
Amazing. We got and Nico, do you want to send the blast for the live stream link as well?
Yes.
Cool. So speaking of morning chats, what's everyone's morning drink been today?
I'll start. It was coffee, but now it's just a very boring water. So you guys see me with my normal water that maybe you've seen before.
Yeah. I usually drink the same thing every morning. It's tea with milk. Very English. But now it's nighttime for me, so I'm only allowed to drink water now.
What about you, Nico? What's been yours?
Well, as soon as I wake up, I drink just water with citrulline malate. It's like some supplement to, I don't know. It's supposed to help with the workout, so I can go to the gym with more energy. Yeah,
that's awesome. I of course had chai because I'm at home. I've had multiple cups at this point. I was thinking about making matcha, but I didn't have time, so I thought, you know what, just gonna go without it. And also GM to Linda, Amio, Britches, Thurgadas, Cosmos, Davis, Simaru, and Ida as well. Filtered water with extra pH. And Thurgadas says, get that man some beans and toast. Sweet. So yeah, we've got 55 people already. Exciting, and a really, really strong start to the day or evening or night, wherever you are. We're super excited for today's session for a few different reasons. The first one being, this has been in the work for months. We'd been hearing a lot of feedback from our community about wanting to learn more about staking, and just a lot of interest that we had. And we'd get messages a lot, and a lot of questions even around like what we do from the Octant side for our staking setup. And we felt like, you know what, staking is it can feel complicated. It can feel overwhelming. It's a word that we hear thrown around all the time. But what does it mean to get started? There's just like so much that we wanted to make accessible. And when we were thinking about how and who we would put together an event with, the first thought that we had was, how about our friends over at EthStaker? They've been past Epoch participants, so of course our community is well aware, but they've just done such a great job in terms of building a community and helping really build that out. And we felt like, if we're going to talk about experts, who better than the team here? So when we reached out to John and his team, they were really, really, I'd say, like equally excited. And I just think, going back to the values driven part, right? Like everything that we do with every single project that we work with, that genuineness is always something we really appreciate. So seeing this come to life and finally having this be the first part is something we're really looking forward to. We know there's quite a few of you who have signed up. And just to go over the flow again. So this is the first session where we're going to go into basics, and I'll let Sam and John speak more to that. But if you have not signed up on the Luma form, please do that. There is going to be a second form that's sent out, because there is going to be a part 2 to this workshop. That is not going to be live streamed. That's going to be a closed room workshop. It's going to be a lot more interactive as well. And that's going to take place on 7th of August. So we're going to send all those details, as well as a take-home assignment, to make sure that everyone that is filling it out is interested, invested, and has watched the stream too. And we just want, it's going to be a little more advanced. And so that's why we've got some filtering questions there to make sure you've done your homework. With that, and oh yes, if this is your first time joining on one of our live streams, I'm Michelle. I lead marketing at Octant and do a bunch of behind the scenes things. If this is your first time, and if you've joined us from the allocation window side, so we have our Epoch 8 window live, just a few days left for the window to close. So if you have locked GLM, make sure you go and take an action, and keep a lookout for more interesting things that we're going to have happening here. Nico, if you want to introduce yourself, and then John will go over to you, and Sam.
Yeah, sure. I'm Nico. I'm doing community at Octant. You've probably seen me around as well, and been hosting these live streams and workshops that are pretty exciting for the entire Ethereum community. So looking forward for this one as well. Jonathan, tell us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello.
About yourself.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can.
You can hear me. All right,
Tell us more
awesome.
about
Yeah, it's really,
yourself.
I'm excited to do this with you all because it's an interesting way to kind of do a combined group community effort at introducing staking to people that are interested in it. And that's something that we really enjoy doing, is getting new participants. And Michelle, Nico, Stakesaurus, you guys have been great to work with, and strong community members in the staking ecosystem. And the way I look at this event in this series is that it's kind of like every year staking is changing. It's new things are being introduced. The protocol is always in development, and Ethereum has upgrades, and there's new people kind of curious, what is staking about and how do I get involved? Where do I even start? Where do I learn? And so as executive director of EthStaker, that's my role at EthStaker, and we try to take a approach of helping people learn and helping people have free, safe, public support resources to go about exploring the community and getting involved if you're interested in doing that, and doing so in a way that's independent. We try to be agnostic about all the different options out there that exist, because as you dive in, there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing this. So yeah, we have we'll give you all the information here that we can in this first intro, but this, I think, can be like a canonical, what does it look like in 2025 to be staking, and how do you get involved? And then in between, there will be opportunity to, an invitation to join what communities there are out there. There's not just really one community, but it's kind of a broader community, and we'll share what those are from EthStaker, Octant, and Stakesaurus, and then also ways you can be directly involved, and then the follow-up with workshops after this. And then one of the things we've also positioned this as is sort of like, our minds right now are really also thinking about where are we going this year. A big thing we have coming is Dev Connect in the fall. And so I've been thinking of this personally as like, okay, this is kind of like the Staker's road to Dev Connect. You could take this as your entry point and continue with the journey, learning with the community. And in November, we're all going to be gathering in Dev Connect for a whole week of events, and EthStaker is going to have an event called the Staking Gathering, and so we want to serve as an invitation for that in-person interaction as well. So yeah, with that, I would want to introduce a great community member we've been working with for a long time, Stakesaurus, who's a solo staker, community member, Lido community lifeguard. And you'll learn what all of that means if some of that doesn't sound familiar to you. But Stakesaurus is going to go over just what this landscape looks like right now, and where you can start learning, and then over the course of this call, some of the next steps and homework you can take on board if you're interested in continuing with that journey, which I hope you are. So Stakesaurus, how about you take it from there?
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Hey everyone. Welcome to this session. So I'm going to start sharing my slides, and it's going to be, promise it won't be too complex. Yeah, this is going to be the introduction to solo staking for you guys. I just got to figure out how to share the screen. One second.
While you're doing that, I'll just give a couple of shout outs to Chiara, Sarah, Hyungi, Laura Punk, Hidayat, and Gabe, and Sarah, of course. And if you have any questions, please do reply to the live stream. We'll read them out. And if there's anything else, we will bring it up over the course of the session. So please engage. We're going to bring it up here.
Okay, 1 second, almost there.
Nico, have you staked before? Do you have a home staker setup?
I do in Bolivia actually, but the internet connection was so unstable that in the end we had to put it down. But I'm looking forward to setting it up again in my next destination.
Amazing. Sam,
Do
go
you?
for it.
That's one of the things that's really interesting. Not to go too deep, but like
Yeah,
when it comes to research and development, they're really trying to optimize for how do we make it so that everyone, we want this to be accessible and permissionless. So like, regardless of, location or bandwidth or all that, we want to make all the efforts to keep it accessible. So it's interesting you mentioned that.
Maybe for a subsequent session, we can dive into exactly how to optimize the setup for regions that have lower like bandwidth access, right? Yeah, and then we can. There'll be a great unlock, I think. Yeah.
That would be amazing. And to answer your question, Nico, no, this is why I'm so excited, because I'm going to be learning, and I'm going to, we'll see how well I'm able to do it based on the homework answers. But
All right,
I'm
awesome.
excited to learn.
All right, guys. The agenda for today is going to be very simple. First, we're going to look at what Ethereum validators actually do. So in order to understand staking, solo staking, Ethereum validators, we need to start from first principles, what Ethereum validators actually do. And then we'll dive a little bit into the Ethereum consensus mechanism. Many solo stakers, node operators, I believe, don't actually have a good understanding on this piece itself. But I think it's worth looking into this, because if you tell people that you're a solo staker and you don't understand how the Ethereum consensus mechanism even works, it's kind of like a kind of negative aura. So this is something that I hope everyone can start looking into. And then we'll look into the opportunities for home stakers today. Not just solo stakers, but home stakers. If you operate your validator nodes from home, what are the opportunities you can tap on? Then we'll look into the tools available for home stakers. This is not, in 2020 or 2021 where you have to do most of the things manually. There are a lot of no code and low code, a lot of abstraction tools available to make your lives a lot easier. And then we'll have the Q&A session, and then there'll be some interesting poems for everyone to claim. So let me start by giving everyone a very quick introduction. So my name is Sam, also known as Stakesaurus on Twitter. I'm an Ethereum solo staker. I'm a contributor with the Lido Community Lifeguards Initiative, an OBO staking master, and SSV verified operator. If you don't know what any of these means, what I do is basically I run distributed validators from home on consumer hardware, using on residential internet connection on residential power lines. So it is entirely possible for you guys to do so as well, for anyone to do so. Of course, there are some regions that may not be optimal, but even I know some people who are running Ethereum validators in Kenya using Starlink internet connection. So it's getting more and more accessible, all right? I also create a lot of guides and tools for my fellow solo stakers, and I build solo staking communities across Asia as well. All right, so enough about me. Let's go into the meat of today's session. What do Ethereum validators actually do? In order to understand this, let's do a very quick recap on centralized versus decentralized systems. Centralized systems, examples like banks, payment networks, insurance platforms, social media platforms that we know today. This is where a single entity can control the past, present, and the future state of a system. This single entity can determine what is real and what is not. Yeah, they are the masters of reality. A centralized system, or rather, having multiple backup servers across the world doesn't make it not a centralized system, because as long as a single entity can control it or is in control of all of these multiple servers, right? It is still a centralized system. It can be distributed, but it is still centralized, right? So most of the internet infrastructure we know today is centralized. Decentralized systems, on the other hand, it relies on a network of independent nodes, independent servers, independent computers working together to arrive at consensus to determine what is reality, to determine what is the state of the system. So blockchain networks fall within this category. But here we have a very important question. Who gets to vote? Who amongst all of these nodes gets to vote? And what is stopping me, one person, a single entity from spinning up 1,000 servers, 1,000 nodes, and pretending to be 1,000 independent entities. And this is where the proof of stake of Ethereum comes into handy. All right, this is a Sybil resistance mechanism, right? By putting 32 ETH at stake, we transform non-validator nodes into validator nodes. It prevents nothing at stake voting, and we require more than 2/3 of validator nodes to reach consensus. All right. In a nutshell, on a very high level, Ethereum validators do two jobs. The first job is to process transactions. The second is to secure transactions. All right. So we'll go into the details a little bit more in the Ethereum consensus mechanism section. But on a very high level, every 12 seconds, a new block will be produced on the Ethereum network. There are more than 1 million validators on the Ethereum network today. And every 12 seconds, one random validator will be chosen to propose the block. Right? This block proposer will say to everyone else, to all of the other validators, hey guys, I checked these transactions and they don't contradict with my records. Let's add it to the blockchain as a new block. All other validators, they will serve the role as an attester. They will check and attest to the statement made by the proposer. And they will say something like, we also checked these transactions and we can confirm that they don't contradict with our any previous transactions in our records as well. So consensus on the transaction validity is reached when more than 2/3 of all validators agree on that the transactions are valid. All right, so moving on to securing transactions. Every 32 slots, right, will form an epoch. All right, so once consensus is reached on the current epoch, right, this current epoch is called something called justified. And then when the next epoch is also justified, means consensus is also achieved on this next epoch. The previous epoch or the current epoch is now finalized. And what does finalization mean? It means attempts to revert any of these finalized transactions will result in something called slashing. And you will need to burn 1/3 of all staked ETH for any such attempts to revert finalized transactions. Okay, and this is why we say that Ethereum has very strong economic security, because what's the market cap of Ethereum today? Anyone has this number off the top of your head? Probably it's at 400 billion now, right? Maybe it's called 420 billion. Okay, let's call it 400 billion, right? Around 1/3 of all ETH is staked, roughly. So that's like 133 billion. And you need to burn 1/3 of that amount, right, to attempt any transaction finalization reversion. So that is around like 45 billion USD. Yeah. So the highest cost of attack on the Ethereum network is 45 billion USD. It's the highest by any measure, highest by a large margin compared to any other networks out there. All right. So let's now we got a high level on what validators do. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the Ethereum consensus mechanism. All right. So let's start from this very simple diagram. I hope it's simple. All right, and then I'll call this the transaction lifecycle on Ethereum. All right, so there are two sections here, the execution and consensus layer. We'll start from the top. All right, so this is us, right? The everyday users. When we submit our transactions via MetaMask and we submit, where does the transactions go? It goes to a holding area called the mempool. All right, so at the same time, another group of users called the MEV searchers will observe this mempool as well and insert their own transactions. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to extract value from under-optimized transactions here. Don't have to worry too much about what this means, right? It'll become clear as we go along. Right. So once transactions are in the mempool, the next group of users called the block builders, which can take the form of external builders or local builders. Local builders are your Ethereum validators themselves. They will take all of these transactions and bundle them into blocks. All right, a block can have like one transaction. It can have 10 transactions. It can have 20 transactions. All right. And they will bundle them into blocks to submit them onto the next available slot on the consensus layer. All right. So MEV searchers, when they want to insert their own transactions into a block to be included in the Ethereum blockchain, they have to pay MEV fees. They pay some fees to the block builders in order to prioritize their transactions, right? And these fees, right, that means that the value that they can extract from these under optimized transactions in the mempool need to be more than the fees that they pay to the block builders. All right. So now, oops. Okay. Right. So every 12 seconds, there will be an available slot on the Ethereum network. All right. 32 slots form an epoch. All right. For each slot, we can only fit one block in it. Okay. So each of these blocks, right, needs to go into one of these slots here. Okay. So what happens here is all validators, all 1 million plus validators, they vote on slot 0 as a checkpoint. All right. And then 1 out of 32, all these validators is split into like 32 groups, and then each assigned to their respective slot. Each slot has a random proposer. All right. And then what happens is once your the epoch is consensus is arrived on this epoch once, is called justified, right? And once the current epoch is justified, the previous epoch, which was justified like 6.5 minutes ago, is now finalized, and transactions cannot be reverted without burning 1/3 of all staked ETH once they are finalized. All right, so 12 times 32 is around 6.4 minutes, and this is why the epoch time is 6.4 minutes. Okay, so this is the transaction life cycle. Now let's take a look at the consensus mechanism itself. Okay, what does consensus mechanism mean? Let's use a couple of simple questions to understand this. Yeah, it's basically to decide which transactions are valid on the Ethereum network, which fork, if the chain does fork, which fork to follow. To put it very simply, in a group of friends, where should we go for dinner, right? We need a decision-making mechanism. So there are two core components to the Ethereum consensus. The first is called LMD Ghost. It stands for latest message driven, greediest, heaviest, observed subtree. Oh, it's such a mouthful, right? If you want a simpler version, we just call it the short-term decision maker, right? Then the other component is called Casper Friendly Finality Gadget. Also sounds very complex. Let's call it the long-term decision maker. Combining these two components, we call it something called Gasper, right? Take the G from Ghost and the Asper from Casper and combine it. We call the Gasper is the Ethereum consensus mechanism. All right, so starting from Casper, the long-term decision maker, just because it's easier to understand it this way. What Casper does is that it sets transactions in stone after sufficient certainty has been established. For example, finalized epochs, right? And sufficient certainty stands for more than 2/3 of validators agreeing that these transactions are valid twice. So just recap on this segment of the transaction lifecycle. Once more than 2/3 of all validators arrive at consensus on an epoch, which consists of 32 slots, this epoch is now justified. All right. And if the next epoch is also justified, the previous epoch is now finalized. Right. So this is why more than 2/3 of validators agreeing that these transactions are valid twice, because by arriving at consensus on this later epoch, they are indirectly arriving at consensus of the previous epoch and all transactions in this previous epoch. Yeah, and once again, finalized blocks and transactions cannot be reverted unless 1/3 of all staked ETH is burnt. Okay, so why does finalization require two rounds of consensus? All right, and this is because only the first block, slot 0, of each epoch is directly voted on by all validators. All right, just to recap on this life cycle thing, all validators vote on slot 0 as a checkpoint. Right, this is for the current epoch. For the previous epoch, also the same. For the next epoch, also the same. Slot 0 is the only slot that all validators vote on directly. One second, let me go back to, yes, right? So this is a higher level view of the transaction life cycles. And what happens is, if all validators vote on the slot 0 of the previous epoch and then slot 0 of the first epoch, what it means is that the other 31 slots and all of the respective transactions contained within have been attested to by all validators. All right. So basically, in order to finalize the other 31 blocks of a previous epoch, the first block of the current epoch also needs to achieve more than 2/3 of consensus. Basically, this and this. Okay. We call this the source vote, and this is the target vote. All right. But it doesn't mean that. Oops. But it doesn't mean that validators only vote on slot 0, because for each epoch, all validators are also split into 32 groups, and then one group for each slot. And each group is further split into committees, and they vote in their respective slots as well, which they view as the head of the chain. And this is called head votes, right? We don't have to really understand what the committees do at this point, because it can get quite technical, right? But just know that they are split into different committees, and then different committees have different types of duties. Yeah, you have the normal attestation, which is voting for validity of transactions. Sync committee is something that enables the use of light clients, which opens up a ton of new use cases for Ethereum. And then you have the proposer, of course, the block proposer, one per slot. And to make the validator network even more efficient, we have something called the aggregation committee. All right. So at this point, maybe a question, right? Why do we not just get all validators to vote on every single 12-second slot? Maybe Nico, you want to try answering this? Why do you think that is the case?
I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be much more simpler, right?
It would, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the answer is because of latency, time, and storage constraints. If we do that, yeah, you need very powerful hardware, very powerful internet connection. So for you, if the current state, you cannot even run it, right? If we do that, right, you absolutely cannot run it. Even I don't think my home internet connection can support that design. So this is a deliberate design choice by I guess the Ethereum Foundation, by the Ethereum network, to enable as many people as possible to participate in the network as Ethereum validators. So sole stakers are very important to the Ethereum network, and this is the trade-off that we have to make. Yeah, and by doing this, okay, I haven't touched on LND Ghost yet, but I'll save this last part after that. Okay, so second core component of the Ethereum consensus mechanism basically dictates which chain to follow if there are competing blocks arising due to network conditions or malicious actors. So competing blocks can arise due to missing blocks, late blocks, network partitions, or something called equivocation, right? So just draw your attention to this very cute illustration here. So you have slot n-2, slot n-1, slot n, and each has one block. And this slot n+1, the next block, the next slot, suddenly there are two competing blocks. So how does LND Ghost decide which of these to choose? The simple explanation is it will choose the block with the most votes on it, right? Yeah, and that's as simple as it gets. Whichever block has more voting weights on it by validators, that will be the canonical block. All right. So by combining these two, Casper and LND Ghost, right, we are able to achieve both very lightweight hardware requirements and also high decentralization, high security for the network, and high liveness. Yes, yeah. Okay, so given whatever I just described, the two very important jobs, the Ethereum consensus mechanism, it is not difficult to understand and see why having more solo stakers is equivalent to having more independent verifiers and enforcers of information on this decentralized system, and it leads to greater security, resilience, and censorship resistance, all of which are properties that give value to the Ethereum block space. And the reason why, at the risk of like sounding like a broken record, the reason why we have this very deliberate design choice on the Ethereum network for validators is because quorum resistance, censorship resistance are non-negotiables for the Ethereum network. If we don't have these two properties, right, then I feel like there's no point in like building decentralized systems. There's no point building blockchains, because then it will be just a slightly better version of the current system that we have, the current centralized system. Yep. And this is why I'm passionate about Ethereum and about solo staking, about spreading this skill set and know-how to as many people as possible. Right, and yet the solo staker percentage today is only at around 6.5%. And this is just an estimate, so the range goes between like 2% to 18%. In the worst case, we are 2% of solo staker percentage. Not quite enough to make a meaningful impact on becoming collision resistant, for making the Ethereum network collision resistant. In order to achieve that level, we need to get to a point where it is 33%, right? Because more than two-thirds are required to arrive at consensus, right? So there's a lot of work we have to do. We should do more, and we can do more. And I guess indirectly, really, this is why there are emerging opportunities for solo stakers as well. So I've broken them down into like 4 categories, starting from bonded validators. These are protocols that allow people to run Ethereum validators with less than 32 ETH. Previously, you needed 32 ETH. At today's price, that's like close to 100K USD. And it puts a lot of people out of range to become solo stakers. Bonded validators reduce this requirement significantly. You have Rocket Pool. Starting from Rocket Pool, I think the latest was 8 ETH, right? 8 ETH bond, and then Rocket Pool will match you with 24 ETH. So it effectively reduces the financial barriers to entry by 4 times. 4? Yeah, 4 times. And then you have Lido CSM. Even lower capital requirements. The first validator key is from 1.5 ETH, and then subsequent keys, you only need 1.3 ETH as compared to 32 ETH per validator key. Puffer Finance has a 2 ETH bond model. Diva staking, even lower, a 1 ETH bond model, but it requires you to use DVTs along with it. Last I heard, they are still on testnet. I'm not sure whether they have gone to mainnet. Stater is something similar to Rocket Pool. They have a 4 ETH bond model instead of 32 ETH, but you do need to also provide their SD tokens as a bond as well, which there are some ways to some clever ways to work around this requirement. But at the base layer, you need 2 types of tokens: ETH itself and also SD tokens. And this combination of Lido and SSV logo, it stands for the Lido SSV Lido module. It is a new module that is still in the works, but it also provides a low bond and higher rewards kind of arrangement for Ethereum home stakers. Yeah. The other benefit of bonded validators is that other than lower capital requirements, your staking rewards are also enhanced organically, because when you are assigned with let's say for Rocket Pool, the 24 ETH, for Lido CSM, the 32 ETH, for Puffer also 32 ETH, right? What happens is that you become the node operator for these assigned ETH or delegated ETH, and these are delegated by the liquid stakers of their respective protocols. So you are now the node operator, and it's natural that you take a fee of the staking rewards generated from these delegated ETH, right? So combining, oftentimes it's like with the same amount of let's say 32 ETH that you otherwise would have put into solo staking, now you can start earning rewards on more validator keys. Yeah. For Lido CSM and Puffer, what happens is that you get a share of the staking rewards from the 32 ETH, but your bond itself is also productive. So there are two organic sources of rewards. I'm not too sure how it works for Stader nowadays, but if I'm not wrong, they also have something similar. Right. And then you have something called distributed validator technologies. This is where you can improve the performance and security of your validator setup, your validator keys, by running an additional distribution and orchestration layer on your validator setup. All right. And these also come with incentives for using their tech stacks to run validators. Yeah. On top of that, being able to operate DVTs, being a distributed validator operator, also opens up opportunities for something called delegations. And for example, delegations can take the form of stakewise, right? Stakewise is where you have call it a liquid staking vault where anyone can spin up, right? So I have a Stakesaurus and a stakewise staking vault as well, where maybe my community members can choose to stake their ETH in a vault that's operated on my infrastructure. Yeah, and it allows me to maybe charge a small fee on the staking rewards generated by these liquid stakers. All right. And what happens when you have a vault technology like this is that something called node set started to emerge, right? And what node set is that it is a stakewise vault operator, right? And they maybe go out to raise from investors, and they deposit ETH into the node set stakewise vault, and then node set will delegate to whoever is part of the node set node operator set. Yeah, and they are keen to onboard more solo stakers this way, right? And then you have EtherFi. They have this program called Operation Solo Staker, which requires the use of DVTs in order to be eligible for delegations, right? And there's also a similar initiative by Lido called the Lido Simple DVT module, where you have to run DVTs either over SSV, and then you have to perform to a certain level before you get admitted into the program. But Simple DVT is out of capacity, so this opportunity is no longer available in the near term or for the foreseeable future. But EtherFi, I think they will have more. They'll have more slots coming up in the future. Maybe next year or something. I'm not too sure as well. There are also opportunities outside of the Ethereum L1 that you can tap on, and the first layer 2 sequencers has opened up. So this EthStaker, you can already run it on testnet, and also Gnosis chain. So Gnosis has a very similar setup to Ethereum, and you can even run a Gnosis validator alongside your Ethereum validator on the same machine. You can also do the same with EthStaker and your Ethereum validator. All right. So, and these opportunities are growing over time. So, by learning this one skill set, yeah, it's very transferable. It's very scalable. So I highly recommend you guys to start exploring this space. Okay. So we talked a lot about opportunities. Let's take a look at where the rewards come from. There are 4 sources of rewards to take note of. 2 comes from the consensus layer, and 2 comes from the execution layer. All right. I should have changed this to attestation, but never mind. Okay. So the first type of reward is called attestations. It is issued as issuance, right? Issuance means it comes from inflation, right? But on the other hand, it is also offset by the base fee paid by users when they submit transactions on the Ethereum network. The second type of consensus layer rewards are sync community and block proposal rewards. Also comes from issuance, but it is not a consistent source of rewards. It is random and requires luck. Transaction tips are direct fee paid by users for speeding up their transactions, also random. MEV fees, indirect fee paid by users for quote unquote leaving money on the table or submitting under optimized transactions, also random. So only attestation rewards are a consistent source. The rest are random and requires luck for you to get them. So if you are very unlucky, maybe you get 2.4%, for the entire year, 2.4% for 2 years even. I have a friend who is a solo staker who just exactly got that and only got his first block proposal recently, just 2 weeks ago. So the total staking rewards rate annually is around 3.3%, maybe a bit lower nowadays because there's been a huge influx of new validators recently. So maybe it's at 3.1% now. And it might seem low at first glance because you have other LA1 networks that can give like 9%, sometimes 12%, 15%, 20%, and 3.3% is even lower than the risk-free US Treasuries rate, I believe. But we have to take note of something called the quality of rewards here, because if you look at this, right, even though issuance and sync committee and block proposal rewards comes from inflation issued by issuance, it is also offset by the base fee paid by users. Transaction tips and MEV also comes from users. So what does this mean? It means this 3.3%, most of it comes from the users. Most of it is real yield. It was only until recently where the issuance became higher than the base fee paid by users, due to the EIP 1559 burn. So we can think of this 3.3% as real rewards. Most of it not issued by inflation. If I create a new network, I can even offer like 1,000,000% staking rewards rate, right? Because I can print as much tokens as I want. But all of this it comes from the user, so it represents real demand. On the other hand, there are also penalties for bad actors, and there are 3 types of penalties to take note of. The first type is not missing your duties normally, and this can happen because your machine goes offline, your internet goes down, your power gets cut. But the impact from this type of penalty is very low. You lose only 80% of what you otherwise would have earned as rewards. So if you're offline for a day and you come back online for the next day, you would already be 1 over 80%, 25% above water. And how to prevent this is also very simple. You just have to keep your validator node synced and running 24/7 and implement a monitoring and alert system. Slashing is the next type of penalty, and this is something we try to avoid because the impact can be pretty high. You basically lose 1 out of 4,096 to 64 out of 4,096 of your total effective balance plus some leakage of around 0.2 ETH per key. And what happens here is that if your validator uses the same validator key to sign on the same block twice, something called double signing happens. And the network thinks that you're trying to be dishonest, trying to be malicious, trying to equivocate, and then the network punishes you. So the network punishes you through this thing called slashing. So how to prevent this? Very easy. Just make sure only one instance of your validator keys are online at any one point in time. Keep your keys very secure, follow slashing protection best practices. And these best practices are already very well documented. EthStaker has a very well documented guide. I also maintain a very well documented guide as well. The last type of penalty is called correlation penalties. This is something we absolutely need to avoid because you can lose up to your entire stake. And what happens here is that if you are slashed or you go offline for extended periods of time, together with a large proportion of the network, right, then at 33% correlation, everyone who is offline or gets slashed will lose their entire stake. And but how to prevent this? So just to be clear, this is a super rare event. It has never happened before. But how do we prevent this? We try to avoid as much vectors of centralization as possible. For example, avoid using supermajority clients. So there are 5 types of execution and consensus client available to run your validators, and all of these has varying levels of market share. So the best practice here is to try and avoid using those that has like more than 33% market share. Right? We can also avoid delegating stake to large centralized entities without good SOPs against this type of risk, because and especially centralized entities who are not transparent with the setup. It's very hard to evaluate whether they have good safeguards against correlation penalties. But the more pressing one that I did not, more pressing factor that I did not include here is that your choice of infrastructure. Imagine if half of the validator set runs on a single cloud provider, and there is a region-wide outage for a day or for like 2 days. This is a much more likely scenario because we've seen this happen in recent years. I don't know name which cloud provider, but yeah, we've seen this happen recently, and it's something quite scary. And this is again why it makes the most sense to run your own infrastructure, your own consumer hardware from home as a solo staker, or at least as a home staker, using some of these very cool opportunities that emerged recently. Yeah. Okay. Even better, nowadays there are no-code and low-code tools available to use. We have DevNode, where it comes with a graphical user interface. You no longer have to touch the command line L. It comes, you log in through a browser, and then you just point and click, choose your client combination, choose what kind of setup you want, and then you're good to go. You have Nethermind Sedge, minimally touching the command line. Styrium as well. For these two, you only need to use the command line for the initial installation. EthDocker, it uses the command line, but it also has a very nice terminal UI. Same thing with EthPillar. And there's one more, EthWizard, that I found out recently. Also similar, you touch the command line minimally, and then you abstract a lot of the manual processes behind the scenes. And if you want, there are also no-code staking hardware available. DevNode not only provides the software, but it also comes with the hardware. And it comes with a very powerful hardware configuration, so that you put your mind at ease. It's future-proof for the next X number of years. It comes with 14-core, x86 architecture CPU, very low-powered. There's an internal fan to cool it down. It is the most mature no-code staking hardware out there, but it also comes with quite a premium. It's in euros is at 190. I think in USD it will be at 2,050 USD. Chain Nodes is the newer player in this space. It comes with 4-core ARM architecture CPU. It's lowest powered at 15 watts. No internal fan, so it's super quiet, passively cool. But you need to be more hands-on for now. Prepared to be more hands-on, to be more willing to troubleshoot with the Chain Nodes team if you do decide to go for this option. But it is the cheapest option out there. It's even cheaper than the DIY options that you can find in the market. This DIY option is something I do for myself as well. I have an 8-core x86 architecture CPU, also low-powered, 40 watts internal fan, but you have to source, assemble, flash the OS yourself. You have to configure everything yourself. Yeah. So this is if you like all of these things, you go for it. Yeah. Otherwise, I think for a complete newbie, either of these options, right, could be a good choice.
There's a question,
Sure.
or a reply rather, that I wanted to read out from Cosmos Up. Actually, I'm just using EthDocker to operate in Hootie testnet, but rarely I'd gotten power off for unexpected problem in my home server. At that time, I really worried about slashing, so I always wait at least one epoch. Is it worth it, and how to prevent it?
Right. So for if your validator keys are only on one hardware, right? What happens is your validator client maintains something called a slashing protection database. So it has memory of what what the last block that you've signed or tested to. All right. So even if you have hardware problems, normally you shouldn't be slashed this way. Yeah, because it has memory of that. If you're really worried, what you can do is to enable something called the doppelganger protection on your validator client. And what happens is every time your validator client restarts itself, it will listen for existing traces of your validator key on the Ethereum network, on the validator network via the gossip mechanism for at least I think it was like 15 minutes, before it resumes its normal duties. Yeah, but it means you miss like 2 epochs. Yeah, but I would say your current approach is very prudent. I will continue doing it, to be honest, because it's very prudent, right? You just miss like one epoch, and one epoch, you will make it back in the next epoch. Yeah. So it in the larger scheme of things, right, is a worthwhile trade-off.
I'll jump in and just make a comment on this too. I put a link in the chat if you guys are watching about penalties and slashing, and this was something that we were seeing a lot of questions about, kind of along the lines here of what Cosmos Up is asking, and this idea that like being offline, is that going to create the conditions for me to get slashed or have some kind of severe penalty? And the link that is on the EthStaker site around penalties and slashing is the one that actually, if you're on the X stream or on the YouTube stream, you'll see it in the chat, and it shows that there's this kind of, it puts it in context, because there's like this big difference between an offline penalty and even being offline for like a week or two. Like if you just happen to not be able to do that, you're only going to have missed rewards from that time during that penalty, and not like a slashing situation, right? Stakesaurus, is that so? Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. But I would say if this is a recurring issue, and then there is an off chance where there is like data corruption, and the data corruption is so prevalent that it even like eats into your slashing protection database, then that could. I've never seen this happen before, but theoretically, I think that could cause a slashing incident. So I think just miss 2 attestations if your hardware goes offline by itself. Yeah, it turns off by itself, and if it is a recurring issue.
Here's the link to the staking penalties.
I think the first time I sent it through, I must have done something where it didn't go through. So thanks for resending that, Michelle.
All good. Thanks, Gabe, for tweeting that out.
Oh, where was I? One sec. Right here. Okay, so moving on. If you do decide to become a solo staker, and you also don't have to worry, because the basic monitoring and alerting setup, right, is very easy to do. Basically what you need to know is when your validators are not performing its duties, or when there are upcoming block proposals or sync committee duties assigned to you, and then to pay attention to your hardware during this period of time. And a lot of these can be just as simple as a mobile app push notification or an email notification. So 2 examples would be Beacon Chain and ETH duties here that you guys can check out. So you don't even have to have a fancy setup as a solo staker, as a basic home staker. If you do need a machine level alerts, because you're running distributed validators, and it's not viable to receive, maybe like 20 notifications every 6.5 minutes, because you're running 20 validator keys using DVTs, then Eridian and myself, we also have our own custom monitoring setup as well. If you want to take it a bit further, you want to scale up your operations. You can also do something called advanced monitoring and alerts. And this is where you want to know exactly what went wrong when you miss your duties or when things go wrong. EthStaker has a very extensive monitoring setup by Remy Roy. Lido also has a tool called the Ethereum Validators Monitoring Tool. You don't have to understand what this diagram actually means, but just know that when things go wrong, you'll be alerted via a cloud service to, let's say, like email, SMS, or Telegram, Discord, blah, blah, blah. You'll also be able to receive or customize the level of detail that you want to receive because of all these services that you run. All right. And more importantly, or most importantly, you can also set up a monitoring service to monitor your monitoring setup. Because what happens if your monitoring setup goes offline? Then you wouldn't know when your setup, something wrong goes on in your setup, correct? So healthchecks.io is a way to monitor your monitoring system, so that if you don't receive, or if healthchecks doesn't receive a regular check-in from your monitoring system, it knows that perhaps it is offline and you need to check on your monitoring system itself. So all of these, knowledge and know-how is already very well established, which is why there's a lot of these kind of tools available. And good thing is, a lot of this can be configured for free. You only need to take the first step. You can join the EthStaker community. You can join one of my many Telegram group chats according to which country you are in, and there'll be people there who have gone through these steps before, and who will be very willing to help you cross the line as well. Okay. The most interesting thing about solo staking to me is that you can run multiple services on a single hardware. Yeah, and the single hardware, it can be from as low as 800 USD one-off cost, and with $90 in electricity cost per year. Yeah. So for example, the two core services you have to run are the execution client and the consensus client, right? As a solo staker, you connect your validator client to your consensus client, and you have vanilla key stores loaded to your validator client. If you want to run DVTs, you can connect your DVT clients, the DVT stack, to the execution client and the consensus client, and then you load the DVT stack with compatible key shards. You can run bonded validators on top of on the same hardware as well. Just run a separate validator client loaded with compatible key stores. And you can run multiple bonded validator services as well. It can be Rocket Pool, Lido, CSM, Stader, Diva, Puffer on one service. Yeah. Of course, the more services you run, the more powerful your hardware needs to be. But with this current setup at USD 900, it's already powerful enough to run many of these, on the same machine. And then you can also run L2 sequences. I haven't tested this on mainnet, to be fair, yeah, but I think theoretically you should be able to do it, at least for now. And then you can also run the delegation stack. For example, you can run the Stakewise vault service and then connect it to your execution client and your consensus client as well. All right. So a lot of things you can do with just a single hardware. And the base skill set is solo staking. Once you know how to do solo staking, right, everything else falls into place. It's, you're 80% of the way there. DVT is maybe the next big item that you have to, the next big skill set that you have to learn. But everything else, right, is going to be super simple once you clear the main skill tree, which is solo staking or home staking. Right. So, and this is where our second session comes in handy. So if you guys are keen, this QR code leads you to our Telegram group chat, which we'll use temporarily to coordinate this hands-on workshop that will happen, I believe it's 7th August.
Yep, it's on 7th of August.
Yeah, 7th of August. Yep. So, so how this session will go is, you will do some light preparation beforehand. There'll be some filtering, there'll be some homework that we'll send in the Telegram chat once you are in. And then, those who complete the simple homework, will be able to attend this hands-on workshop. It's going to be a very curated session, and all of you are going to go step by step in setting up your own Ethereum validator on a cloud VM for free using free credits, and have a taste and experience of what it's like being a solo staker or home staker.
Yeah, and I would just point out too that we are kind of creating this space that's kind of associated with this workshop in this session, but it's kind of like an open community of resources out there, right? Like, and you don't have to do it this like in this kind of group exactly. Like, you could go learn from any of the public resources we've been sharing, and the public Discord. Like, there's free support in these places. So I just like to point that out in terms of like safety, because like you don't like, you can kind of go any direction you want. And we actually have a page on the EthStaker site called ethstaker.org/safety that we just made a few weeks ago, because yeah, it's just something that we like to emphasize, that you can never be too careful out there in this industry, and there's always scammers out there. So I like to mention that you can do it in all different ways, and but this collective right here is something that we're going to continue working with everyone in the community to help support you, but you're not obligated to anything with us.
For sure. Though it does help to have a cohort and other people that are
Definitely.
on that
Yeah,
journey.
it's kind of like
right?
this. It's like coming in at this moment in time and saying, hey, we all did that workshop on the 22nd, and we're kind of like walking together towards the 7th. I think it's a really cool framework. And so I think that's the way to think about this for people that are listening right now.
Absolutely. And I see Ida, who has replied, it would be amazing if you could give the homework with enough time, because I don't have a lot of time, would love to do it. Absolutely. We are going to email this. So if you all have signed up to the Luma page, we're going to email a link to the Telegram group chat, as well as the homework sheet. We're going to have rolling signups. I believe we have limited slots, and so we are going to be a little bit selective. But of course, please get your signups in and get your sheets filled out. It's not too complicated. If you've paid attention to the session, you can rewatch it as well, both on the EthStaker YouTube channel or on the Octant Twitter account. And as always, like sort of like what John said, when it comes to our Discord and our Telegram community too, it really is there to give you as much support as possible. If you do join the chat, we're here to answer any questions or anything else that might come up. But the point is really just to get people started. We want to see more stakers joining. We want to see more first-time stakers as well. And we're here to help facilitate that. And that's why these two sessions, so the first one being a little bit more general, going through the landscape right now and all of the cool opportunities that Sam just went through. And then the second one being closed room. So we're not going to live stream that. And so I see 420 of you have joined it. 420, haha. Sorry, I've got like my fourth grade humor on right now, but please do sign up. And I think just to wrap it up, thank you, John, and thank you, Sam, so much for this incredible session. It's been so helpful. And for everyone who has engaged, who has replied, who has reached out, we, one, welcome you to both of our communities, and two, are excited to see you become a bigger part of the Ethereum ecosystem. This is an incredible setup. And again, I think we're all on this journey together. So if it is overwhelming and you have questions, please do ask. No question is too stupid or silly, or if there's something that's been unclear, definitely reach out, because we are here to offer as much support as possible. And before we do wrap up, we do have a fun POAP as well. So Nico, if you can share your screen, and then we can, we are. What is a fun POAP, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so if anyone's familiar with the EthStaker community, we periodically do these calls kind of like this. We call them community calls. And so when Mishal and I and Stakesaurus were talking about how do we want to organize this, I was like, this can serve as an EthStaker community call too, because I really want this to be seen as like an invitation from the community. And so one of the things we do is something called a POAP, which is a proof of attendance protocol is what it stands for. And it's kind of like an NFT that, or it is an NFT, it's a mark on the blockchain that shows that you participated in something. And so it's these tokens that you can collect, and you'll see people who have collected many of them for many different purposes. But these are ones that we put together for the EthStaker community. And so this one is specifically made for the Staking in 2025 event that we just participated in here today. So anybody here who is listening and watching the recording of this, you can collect this. This is set up in such a way that I'll explain a little bit how this works for anyone who has never seen this type of thing before. But there's like a very low nominal amount of ETH that is, for this to function, is sent to this address, this poap.ethstaker.eth address. It comes out to like $1 or $2 or something like that, depending on the day, right? And then once you send it to that address, there's a mechanism underneath that mints the POAP to your address, and that's all you have to do. And so you can send it to poap.ethstaker.eth or the address that's here in the slide, and you can send it on Arbitrum 1, Base, Optimism, or Ethereum mainnet. Those are all just different layers of Ethereum, and those payment to that will work on any of those networks. And you can also use the QR code that's shown here for this POAP airship. That's the mechanism that makes it so you can get this collectible. So yeah, we designed this cool thing. It's got the logos there of Octant, Stakesaurus, and EthStaker. It's also minted on Arbitrum 1. We have a special collaboration with them where all of our community called POAPs go on Arbitrum 1. So, but it's not required that you use that for the airship itself. You can use any of the 4 networks I mentioned. So yeah, some fun stuff there. Go collect it. I'll be collecting it, and I hope you all do too. And then we can all look back and remember that time that we got together to learn about this. And it's available. So if somebody is watching the recording in the next couple of days, we set it up so that it can be minted anytime between now and the end of the day on July 25th. So what is that? This weekend, I think. So yeah, you have a couple days for anyone watching the recording in the next few days. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So yeah, let's
amazing. Well, thanks so much, John. And thank you, Nico. And thank you, Sam, for this great session. And thanks everyone for staying if you have stayed till the end. We're always really excited to see everyone join in and show so much of excitement. And it's been a really, really busy but fun few days with all of the live streams we've been hosting. A final plug, we are hosting another live stream tomorrow with core devs going over the Glamsterdam forks. And that's going to be with a lot of the core researchers in the Ethereum ecosystem. So definitely join us tomorrow as well, because that's going to be a really great and informative session. And with everything else, if there's anything, we have our Discord, so please reach out. And see y'all tomorrow. Or I'd say later, because we do have a Dragon's Den, Nico, right? That you are hosting in a couple hours again.
Yes, so tune in indeed a bit less than 2 hours. We're going to be hosting our weekly Dragon's Den. Little trivia this time is going to be about Epoch 8 projects, so it should be pretty fun and informative about the projects that are currently in Epoch 8. So you get a chance to win some GLM if you answer the questions correctly. So I invite everybody. And yeah, thanks again, Sam and Jonathan. This was super informative. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Your day, evening, or night, wherever you are. And we'll see you in the next one.
Great.